What up, cool people? I wanted to record this video to go over social judgment theory, which is the image that I had posted in the group. If you understand this image here, then you understand how propaganda and persuasion works on a mass level. And I want to walk you through real quick how it's been done specifically to the image that I showed you guys with FDR, kind of what social judgment theory is, and then really how to start applying it in your marketing and get better conversion results. So let's go ahead and start here at the beginning, because this is basically what the degrees of persuasion really are, right? And all social judgment theory is how do we get them from the strongly opposed or moderately opposed or slightly opposed, even to neutral, but how do we get them into strongly in favor, right? And the whole purpose here, and what big media companies do, what countries do with their news, with their publicity, with their media, is they are consistently trying to move the mark of belief and opposition of their people to the in favor side, right? This is how political elections are won across the board, around the world. Doesn't matter if you're in America or another country. This is how it kind of works. And they're really looking to do is how do we get the masses to move, not just, how do we go from strongly opposed all the way to strongly in favor, because that rarely happens. People's belief systems are ingrained into them and how they operate. And so it rarely happens like that ever. Right. And so really what you see inside of media and what outlets are doing is they're just trying to get you to take one step more in the right direction to their side. Right. And so it's taking these one steps forward, and you can do this inside of your marketing. So first, though, let's just kind of dive into what I meant by the FDR example. Right. So this is Adolf Hitler versus, Churchill, and Roosevelt versus America. Really, if we look back in 1933, right, Hitler became Chancellor of Germany. He really wants to rebuild Germany into what he believes to be the state it should have been in, right? The true motherland, the dominant power in the world. And so he wants to rearm them, basically. He wants to rearm them, which is against the Treaty of Versailles in 1919 after World War I. And so by 1939, Hitler and his Nazi army had invaded European countries like Austria, Czechoslovakia, and more, and really started to invade Poland, right? And so meanwhile, in the U.S., though, a poll showed that 80% of Americans wanted the country, wanted the U.S. to stay out of the war, even if Great Britain and France were losing, right? And this is really what where the big focus for Roosevelt's entire presidency came from, was believing that we should be joining the world war, helping out Great Britain and France, our allies, and to fight the spread of what, for them, it was the domino theory, right? They wanted to fight the spread of communism and the spread of socialism inside of the rest of the world. And so in 1939, policies were submitted by Roosevelt to revoke existing embargoes to allow cash and carry basis, and that policy was shot down by Congress. Now, cash and carry policy essentially just means, we wanted, as the U.S., we wanted no part inside of any kind of conflicts happening in Europe and in Asia and all those areas, right? We wanted nothing to do with them. In the U.S., the United States people wanted nothing to do with it. 80% of the people wanted nothing to happen. And so what he would try to do was create a policy called cash and carry, which is like, hey, listen, though, if these other countries want to buy, let's say, weapons from us, ammo from us, what if they paid cash and they had to, come and get it themselves, right? Like, we didn't even transport the ammunition or the weapons to them, but if they paid us cash and they came and got their stuff and took it back to their own countries, would we be against that? Because that stimulates economic growth. That's good for us. It's cash. And it was shot down in Congress, right? And so at this point, though, France and Great Britain declared war, and World War II was now underway, really, around this time. Okay. And so in November of 1939, Roosevelt convinced the American people that the repeal of the embargo and implementation of a cash and carry policy was not a movement towards war, but rather the movement towards peace. And I'm going to show you kind of the brilliance behind how it happened, how he did it, but ultimately is how the social judgment theory really kicks in and shows the persuasion of how he did what he did, right? So June 1940, the French army collapsed, leaving Great Britain to fend for itself against all odds. Great Britain stayed in the fight, but didn't look good. Okay, they were running out of money, they were running out of weapons, and they really didn't have much other places to go. However, American isolationists, meaning people who wanted America to just stay out of it, stay isolated, stood their ground, entering the war, right? Even if France fell and Great Britain was left alone to fight for itself, we still did not want to join. October 1940, 83% of Americans still saw no need to join the war, okay, even though France fell. Great Britain was now broke, and soon they would not be able to continue financing the weapons and ammunitions needed to survive with the cash and carry policy. Okay, here's where it starts to get good. In first half of 1940, German U-boat attacks had significantly reduced the Royal Navy's destroyer force, crucial for protecting the merchant fleet. Okay, Winston Churchill implored Roosevelt to hand over 50 to 60 old destroyers, but Congress did not want any part in the war. Okay, so now Winston is pretty much pleading with the U.S. president, hey, please send us destroyers. We need these bad. We're not going to make it. But Congress was still like, nope, we're not doing it. We're not joining. We're not having any part of this, right? This is where Roosevelt started to truly begin his master level persuasion skills, and this is the lesson for today. So in return for the destroyers, this is what Roosevelt got them to do. The U.S. would lease 7 British naval bases in the Western Hemisphere. Okay, Roosevelt basically sold this to the public as an astute move to secure naval bases to protect the homeland. Okay, so basically saying, hey, if we can then occupy these naval bases, well, then this is actually protecting us as the United States. This is not helping the war. This is not helping them. This is actually just us protecting ourselves, right? The strategic and political logic was undeniable, right? Obviously, if we could inhabit naval bases by the British in the Western Hemisphere, we can actually just secure ourselves. We're building more of a wall around ourselves, okay? So December 9th, 1940, right after Roosevelt had been reelected to in basically another term, Churchill avowed Britain's commitment to fight until the end, and he informed Roosevelt that the Britain was broke, basically saying, hey, as Great Britain, we are going to fight to the death. We are not going to give up, but it's not looking good. We don't have any cash. We don't have any resources. So December 29th, Roosevelt did a fireside chat. He started by saying, this is not a fireside chat on the war, but on national security, okay? I'm going to show you how this kicks in here. Does anyone seriously, and this is his quote, does anyone seriously believe that we need to fear attack anywhere in the Americas while a free Britain remains our most powerful naval neighbor in the Atlantic? Basically saying, hey, if Britain is there, do we actually have to fear anything for ourselves? If they are there and they are thriving and they can protect themselves, do you think that they're going to make it past them and get to us? Then he says, does anyone seriously believe, on the other hand, that we could rest easy if Axis powers were neighbors there? Meaning, if the enemy was right there at our door in the Atlantic, do we believe that we could actually rest easy? And then he says, if Great Britain goes down, the Axis powers will control the continents of Europe, Asia, Africa, Austria, Asia, and the high seas, and they will be in a position to bring enormous military and naval resources against this hemisphere. So he's changing the focus of, let's stop thinking about Great Britain and Great Britain winning the war, or them surviving, or them defending themselves. If they are not there, do you think that we could be safe? Do you think we could rest? Knowing if they are our last line of defense, realistically, and they're fighting for themselves, but if they go down, then the only thing that stands in their way is distance. But because they would now have access to the high seas, they would control Asia and Africa and Australasia, we are in severe risk here, right? And so he continues, and he argued that helping Great Britain was no charity, but rather enlightened self-interest. This is very unique phrasing that he used. Enlightened self-interest, basically saying the best immediate defense of the United States is the success of Great Britain in defending itself, and it is equally important from a selfish point of view of the American defense that we should do everything to help. So he's starting to realize that the American public do not want to participate in this. They do not want to be in someone else's war, finance someone else's war. This is the problem that happened in World War I. But what he is saying here is now saying, no. Us helping Great Britain is not an attempt to help Great Britain. It is an attempt to protect ourselves, right? So here's what I mean, how it's outlined. If you know, the left side, right, is saying America should stay out of the war at all costs. This is where people were, right? This is the attitude of the public. We should not be a part of it, right? This over here would be America should enter the war on the side of Great Britain, right? What he wants to do is, okay, if we are all here, America should stay out the war, how can I slowly curb their area of trust, their opposition? How can I start bringing their acceptance more to the right? And he does this by shifting their focus from us helping Great Britain to us helping ourselves. And this is how he starts to tactically increase the acceptance or decrease the opposition of helping out Great Britain in a time that he believes that we should actually be helping, right? And so proposing the FDR, the cash and carry policy, was just one way that he did this, by even saying, okay, listen, us helping Great Britain, we're not going to help Great Britain, but do we also like money? Do we also like economic stimulation? Well, we're not helping them if they are paying us for the weapons in cash and then come and get their own weapons and transport it back. We're not even shipping. We're just collecting a check at this point, right? So he's altering the perspective of the acceptance that people have by just changing the way he's packaging it, and more of bringing focus of this is how it helps us. We're not actually helping the war, we're helping us, right? He does this consistently. And so this is the whole idea of social judgment theory, is when you have a market that is opposed to what you're trying to sell or what you're trying to offer, or they don't see the value in it, you must find the things they do see value in and start bringing attention and focus to that, and that's how you move them along from opposition to acceptance. Right? So if you have a software company and maybe people don't get the cool value that you're trying to present or what it does, what can you align that they do value, right? In software, easy example is the time it saves them, right? They might not value your software, but do they value the time that they invest into, trying to get that thing done that your software does much faster, much easier? Do they value time? Well, then you should start paying attention to what they do value, what they do know about, which in that case would be time. And that's how you start to move them from opposition to acceptance, right? All right, so here's a little bit more of how to implement this, right? So the goal of marketing is to do either one of two things. Either one, to affirm your market's beliefs and how their action on those pre-recognized beliefs are supported by taking action on your product or service, right? Here's the examples, right? You're a customer who never settles for less than the best. Okay, if they don't see the instant value in your product, but are they someone who settles for, products that do half-ass work? Maybe they're using a software or a competing product that isn't as good. Are they someone who settles for that? Or you hate wasting time. Our thing helps you blank, do that, right? We help you save the time. We help you save the energy. We help you avoid the mistakes. So it's like, if they don't value instantly or inherently what you're trying to sell, what can you find that they do value that your thing helps support, that helps back that belief that they already have, right? If people already inherently believe their time is valuable, then you showing how your product or service can help them confirm or affirm that belief that their time is valuable. That's how you can start getting better persuasion in your marketing, right? Or the second thing it does is enlighten them, just like how Roosevelt did with enlightened self-interest. It wasn't just self-interest. It was saying, hey, this is enlightened self-interest. We didn't know this before, but now that we look at this situation in a different lens, now that we look at, hey, if Great Britain's not around, then, hey, we can't protect ourselves as well. It's now enlightened self-interest. This is the term that he coined. Then to enlighten them that the status quo is not favorable and action allows for better outcomes, right? So example, why should you have to suffer from high interest rates, right? This is an enlightened statement. This is something saying, hey, there is a new way to do things you didn't know about, but why should you have to suffer? Why? Why should you have to continue settling for less than what you deserve, right? Or are you sick and tired of X, right? Are you sick and tired of XYZ process taking for so long? Are you sick and tired of other products or other companies not giving you quality ingredients in your supplements or whatever, right? Are you sick and tired? You're trying to convey the idea of there's an enlightenment that I can show you, that my product can give you, or that my service can provide for you, that you weren't able to get before, but now that this exists, you are now able to get it now because you are enlightened by us, right? And so doing those two things, that's what you want to do inside of your marketing, okay? And you do this through two different ways. One is redefinition, okay? So redefinition is a concept brought by Eugene Schwartz, and it's basically the process of giving a new definition to your product. It says the product is this rather than that, right? So basically, naturally, not every product is perfect, and there will be objections and roadblocks that appear in every prospect's mind, okay? So no matter what product or service you're trying to sell or promote, there's always going to be objections that your reader or your prospects have in order that they needs to be overcome in order to convert, right? So redefinition can help overcome these objections and even solve them before the prospect is even conscious of them, okay? So we do that through two ways, simplification and escalation, okay? So simplification, what I'm going to show you in a second, is basically to help solve confusion, mental process cost reduction. So whenever someone sees a process that seems super complicated, it can bump them out of the conversion pocket. So I'm going to show you how to do that, and then escalation. So simplification essentially is basically taking the seemingly difficult or complicated product or service and simplifying it in the prospect's mind. Okay. This is basically helps whenever you have a service that may be more technical, or a product that has a lot of different steps to actually why it's amazing. And this can help simplify it down. Okay. Here's some examples of what you already know about that is simplification, right? 15 minutes can save you 15% or more on car insurance. We've all heard this headline. It is a simplification headline, right? Now, obviously, if they said, click this application button, fill out your name, your email, your phone number, your job, your cars that you have, your history that you've had it in, what your premiums are, blah, 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 then you can save 15% or more on car insurance. Well, no one's going to really want to convert. But if you simplify it down to 15 minutes or less can save you 15% or more on car insurance, well, then now all of a sudden you have a simplification pull, and you're more likely to convert people, right? Which again goes into the fact of, do they value their time? Yes, they value their time, but they also value not being hassled, not going through a bunch of hoops, right? So now you're simplifying it, and you're much more likely to convince them. Another thing, 10 minutes per day for rock hard abs. We've heard this all the time in the fitness industry, right? With all these different workout equipments, right? Now, what they can talk about is the pain that you're going to go through, the struggle, right? The wheezing, the breathing heavy, the sweat everywhere, right? They're not going to talk about it, but they can simplify it down in your mind to where if they can just go, hey, can you commit to 10 minutes per day for rock hard abs? It simplifies it into the reader's mind, and they're much more likely to accept it and not oppose it, right? All right, so here's the formula of how to do it. So first, identify the core belief that your prospect currently has that would cause friction in them believing your claim, okay? You need to identify what belief that they have that would be causing friction for them to believe your claim, right? So one, do they believe that your process is hard or complicated? This is important because some of you might already have something that people can, perceive as simple. And so if you try to simplify it down even more, you might be doing that when you don't actually have to. So you have to figure out what aspects to your product or service do people believe is hard or complicated, right? And so this example up here, I'm not going to read through, but you can actually read it. This is a simplification ad that was all about, basically maintenance for TVs. Back in the day, it was like 60s, 70s when TVs were really kind of just like massive machines. People had to do maintenance on them to keep up the signal and make sure they didn't go blurry, right? So you can read this actually, and it would be a great way of bringing a lot of clarity to knowing like this is literally a DIY Facebook repair book that they're trying to sell, right? And notice how they simplified it down into just a few minor tweaks, right? That you don't need to go pay for an expensive repairman, right? Which is more expensive and complicated. But I can actually show you how to do a few minor adjustments on the outside controls of your set, right? It does a great job of simplifying. So anyway, what doubt do they have in themselves, your product or service? This is something that you'll have to overcome. So, for example, Americans believe that we shouldn't enter the war in European affairs because it didn't have to do with us, and Great Britain still hasn't paid back World War I debt. So this is why the American people did not want to join the war. But what Roosevelt had to do was correct it and pivot it to the idea of no, this has nothing to do with us helping Great Britain. This has everything to do with us helping ourselves, right? So you had to identify what beliefs or what doubts that other people have, and then he had to pivot them so that it was in a way that was simple and understandable, but also benefits us the greatest, right? All right. So what you want to do, once you've done that, is redefine the friction points into simpler, more commonly understood analogies. Example, just like that TV repair ad, small repairs became minor adjustments, right? He didn't want to say the word repair because then people thought it was going to be too complicated. So saying minor adjustments is something that everyone can understand and goes, okay, I could do a minor adjustment instead of small repairs. You see this at the doctor's office, right? Annual physical becomes a yearly checkup. It just feels lighter. Right? Physical makes me go, okay, what does that mean? What's all getting tested? Blah, blah, blah. Yearly checkup feels seamless, feels easy, right? This is why doctors' offices use this language instead of the other. Another one, leasing war supplies to fight Germany equals enlightened self-interest, okay? Leasing war supplies to fight Germany would not have done well with the American people. People wouldn't have liked that. But by saying through enlightened self-interest, hey, because we've now realized that helping, lease war supplies and the cash and carry policy is actually just to help us, it makes it much easier. It's like that sugar in the medicine that makes it go down, right? This is how he had to pivot it. Okay. And then what you want to do is support the redefinition in copy to lower costs and increase acceptability. Essentially, once you've redefined it, you now want to support it with copy, just much like it was done in this ad down here, but you want to support it with why you say it that way. Okay. Now, important to know, just like Eugene Schwartz says, innovation without acceptance is valueless. The more people know something is difficult, the more revolutionary and therefore different your product is, the more resistance you will meet from them in accepting it. Okay, it just means that when you have something revolutionary, or if people commonly believe that it is difficult, what you are doing or what you're trying to propose is difficult or hard, then you have to be careful, because as soon as you make something so innovative, it will turns on the BS meter of your reader, then you'll lose them. Okay, so you want to make sure it's innovation, you want to make sure it's revolutionary, but you don't want to breach outside of what their acceptance is. Okay, so you just want to make sure that it doesn't send people's BS meters off. You got to back up whatever you say. Cool. All right, so we figured that part out. Let me go to escalation. So escalation is basically taking a product or service and basically, if it's not sexy, how do we make it sexy, right? So when acceptability is reached, however, the value, right? So essentially, if we think of a tug of war, you basically have value here, cost here. So your value has to be higher than your cost. That's why it's minus C, but then it has to be still meet acceptability, right? So your value has to always be higher than your prospect's perceived cost, but then it also has to match acceptability if you actually want to convert them, right? So here's an example. So here's a headline. Your entire life was spent trying to get others to do what you want without friction. This was a headline used for a course on handling people, on just talking to people, right? So it's bringing up the value of something, taking something that maybe seems small, but then expanding it to the value being even higher, right? Your entire life is spent trying to get others to do what you want without friction. So wouldn't it be important to maybe spend $20 on a book that can show you how to handle people, right? What does profit a man to gain the whole world but lose his soul? This is from the Bible. Again, this is escalation. This is an escalation statement, right? Taking something and then expanding it to give greater context and clarity on the true value that you're providing. Does anyone seriously believe, on the other hand, that we would rest easy if the Axis powers were our neighbors there? This is an escalation statement by Roosevelt, because he is taking the whole idea of even rest, right? If we don't help Great Britain, could we even sleep at night? Are your kids safe? Right? He's escalating the point of the statement to give you greater clarity and context for what he's trying to do. Here's some more examples. When your freezer eats less, your family eats more. They're escalating the value and the importance of the refrigerator, of your freezer. That, hey, if your freezer is more energy efficient, your family gets to actually eat more, right? They're escalating it. A simple turn of the ignition and your faith in mankind is completely restored. They're literally saying, hey, just by getting this car, turning that key ignition, your whole faith in mankind is completely restored. They're escalating the value of it, right? So here's how you do escalation. So 3 ways to escalate your sales copy. 1, increase benefit appeal. You want to increase benefit appeal. You want to go deeper into the current surface benefits of your product or service and expand. Let me check this 1 second. All right, so you want to go deeper into the surface benefits, right? So you're going for potency over volume here. You want to find the things that are surface level benefits, but what can you find that are different benefits that maybe come from it, right? So what's the benefit? Then what's the benefit of that benefit? And now that example is, now that you smell good with deodorant, finally you have the confidence to demand the promotion you get, that promotion, or you get noticed by girls, etc. Right? You're taking the benefit, smelling good, which maybe seem small, but then what else can that lead to that now gives a greater benefit to your reader, right? Or 2, increase importance of the product, right? Show the prospect that your product or service is the golden key for getting what they really want. Right? So this has to maintain acceptability, but another way to do this is the only way to get more customers consistently is by decentralizing your ad account. This is an example of what we might say internally at our company, right? Where it's taking something that they have, a feature that's important that you have, and then expanding how it is the key to actually getting what they want, right? The only way for you to win your time back as a CEO and spend more time with your family is by having a well-tuned operation system internally, right? They're expanding the value of it, right? Next, increase the utility of the product, right? Show the prospect that they won't just use your product once, but that it will continue to be used every day or very often and will continue to benefit from it, right? This isn't just a once and done product or service, but when you use our product or service, it gets better and better and better every single time you use it. Those are the 3 ways you can escalate your copy. So, example, just looking back here, does anyone seriously believe that we need to fear attack anywhere in the Americas while a free Great Britain remains our most powerful neighbor in the Atlantic, right? This is, if you don't know, this is going to be actually, all right, sorry, I had a call. Anyway, does anyone seriously believe that we need to fear and attack anywhere in the Americas while a free Great Britain remains our most powerful naval neighbor in the Atlantic? Does anyone seriously believe that, on the other hand, that we could rest easy if the access powers were our neighbors there? Both of these are examples of redefinition. He's redefining what it is, and this top one is really kind of more of a simplification, right? Does anyone seriously believe that we need to fear attack anywhere in the Americas while a free Great Britain remains our most powerful naval neighbor in the Atlantic? This is kind of a simplification, and then this is an escalation. Right? Does anyone seriously believe that we could rest easy? Right? Could we even sleep at night? Are our kids safe? He's escalating the value of what he's actually trying to say here, right? So those are just examples here. Awesome. Hopefully you enjoy this training. Let me know. Give me a heart if you like this. You want me to do more stuff like this. Cheers.